Good morning, everyone. Here we are behind the scenes at your teen, and at least where I am, it's super cold and a little snowy outside. So I'm happy to be here with my pals, and we're happy to have Kamira here with us again. I think you're from Atlanta, right? Is that
I
where you're?
am.
Okay.
Mhm.
So today's topic is one that I think we can all relate to. Our kids, we spend a lot of time taking our kids to their activities and stuff, and it's inevitable that you become friends with the other parents, and and even in school and everything else. But then what happens as our kids get older and you've become very good friends with the parents, but maybe the kids grow apart? How do these friendships survive? Can the moms remain friends? And how do you navigate that? So that's sort of what we're exploring today. um, so for me, I have a fairly unusual take on this because I was a teacher and I taught in my kids' school, my high school teacher, and I taught in the same school as my kids. And then also in the summers, my kids went to a camp where I worked. So I had a lot of overlap in my kids' life. And for me and our family, it was very important that we kind of set some boundaries, that it didn't feel like we were always on top of each other, which is sort of ironic now that we're living in a pandemic and we are on top of each other. And so we really were pretty careful about when we did socialize. The kids socialized who they want to, and we socialized who we want to. And what's really great is that we didn't lose any friendships when our kids stopped being friends with the same people. So that was, I mean, that was the blessing in it. And, whatever. And of course, there were times when we would all get together, but it's still, we were really like, we just knew that everybody needed their space, them and, grown-ups and kids. And the other thing, as I was thinking about this too, is, I know we feel bad. It's like, oh, sometimes, just as kids grow apart, I think parents do too. And, I call them situational friendships, that, at a certain point of your life, you're hanging out, you're on the soccer field, or you're at rehearsal or whatever it is. And those are the moms or the dads that you're hanging out with, and you have this bond and it's so great. And then you don't see them because somebody's moved on to something else. And your friends, sometimes those friends do come and go. And I guess I get that. I think it's okay. It doesn't mean that when you see them, it's not going to be a lovely big, hug or fist bump or whatever doing these days and catching up. But, I feel like there are so many hours in a day, and I think about, how friends have come in and out of my life at certain times. And, I've kind of made peace with that. And as much as I would like to keep everyone and be able to maintain those relationships, I'm not very good at it, and I guess I've had to accept this about myself, and and go from there. So anyway, that's what I have to say on this topic now. Let's see, Sharon, how about you?
Good morning, everyone. Um, I wish that it didn't matter so much who I'm friends with and who my kids are friends with, but I really feel like it does affect my relationship with adults. Like as my kids got older and started to grow apart from some friends, the tight friendships you make when your kids are really little and they're in the same preschool or play group, or that can happen when they're older with sports teams too. And then when they drift apart, I feel like I lose some of my adult friends, and it's kind of sad. And I get it because we're not together as much, but I do feel like sometimes, were we just friends because our kids were friends? I miss you. Um, and then the only other thing that I really have come to as a takeaway is that it's better for us to be as uninvolved in our kids' disputes as we can. When your kid has that disagreement with a friend, or the falling out, or something's going on and you're not sure of all the details, and then you're going for coffee with the other parent or something. And I think it has worked best when we're both like, I don't know what's going on with the kids, but I'm sure they'll work it out. And it's when, if they don't and they drift apart, if you can just feel like we both agree to let the kids do their thing, that has been for the best. Because I've seen friends try to get involved in the disputes between their kids, and it just gets so tangled and complicated. It's very tricky, though. I'm going to pass to our special guest, Kamira.
Good morning. Thank you. Um, I I'm a small friend circle kind of person. So once I have these friendships, I want to do what I can to preserve them. When one of our sons was really young, he got into some kind of long-standing fight with a friend, and we went to a birthday party, and it was a very fancy birthday party with a parent section with wine. And I grabbed my glass of wine and sat down next to a parent, and I turned around and the mom said, "Oh, apparently our sons aren't friends anymore." And we looked at each other and we both said, "Screw them." And we clicked wine glasses and went on. We were like, forget it. We don't have to be held to whether or not they're friends. And I had young children then, so that set the tone for me. A few years later, one of our sons was fighting with another kid. It was awful. They were physically fighting. It was affecting things. The school wasn't doing enough. So I had coffee with the mom, who was totally unaware any of this was happening. Apparently the family was going through a divorce. The school was contacting the dad. He was not telling her, etc. And so we formed a friendship over our fighting kids rather than the other way around, because once she learned what was going on, she was eager to solve it, not just for our kid, but clearly there was other things going on with her son. And so we formed a friendship that way. But I find it key that the friendships, I can maintain the friendships if there's something about them that has nothing to do with our children. I have a friendship with a woman, and we became run walk partners. We did a 15K yesterday. And that has nothing to do with our kids, right? And as we run and walk together, we learned more about each other and learned more things we had in common and began to appreciate each other. And our sons drifted apart. So it used to be we were thrown together because our sons were friends, but now sometimes our sons are thrown together because we're friends. I'm going to pass it to Eka.
Good morning. So I have a story. It goes back when my daughter was in kindergarten, and I met another kindergarten mom and we became friends. And she had a neighbor who would call her every day to complain about the daughter, like my friend's daughter, how she had treated the other woman's daughter on the bus every single day. About she didn't sit with her, she didn't pay enough attention to her, and it was horrible. And she would tell me about this, and our girls became friends, and we made a vow when our girls were in kindergarten that we would not do that to each other, and that we wouldn't that we wouldn't tell each other like specifically what our kids were doing unless it was, a big thing. And so our girls were really good friends. And then all of a sudden when they got to middle school, they weren't anymore. And when I saw it coming, we sat down and I said, listen, you know what's happening. I know what's happening. We have to make a pact that we can't take this out on each other, what's happening. And we've made that pact. And now our girls are 28 and 24, respectfully, both, our girls are the same ages, and we're still really, really good friends. And we worked hard to bite our tongues and to, because I love her. And I knew that I didn't want that, what happened with our kids, to take away what we had. But it took work. It took a lot of times of venting, I think, on both of our parts. But that was important to us. So that's the story I have about that. And it was painful during those adolescent years where our girls were not always nice to each other. So that's my story. I'm going to send it over to Jen.
Thanks, Eka. In my case, I found, I was thinking back on specific examples, and I found that if the case was that the kids just naturally grew apart, as they do, they have different interests, it was much easier to maintain the relationship with the friend. In a case where there was some not so nice behavior going on, some, exclusion and some, maybe a little bit of bullying is way too strong for it, but let's just say classic mean girl behavior. I felt like I had to really extricate from that friendship, not completely, but just sort of like take it down a tier. And we used to do some combined family gatherings and over holidays and things. And I had to extricate from it because I felt like I was being disloyal to my kid who wasn't being treated well. And I didn't want to have any conversation about it. I didn't want to have it out. And I never broke up with that parent. It's just that I felt like we had to kind of cool it a little bit on that relationship. and we're still friendly and still maintain, maybe go to lunch once in a while, but it's just, it wasn't possible to maintain that connection at the same level that it had been previously. And I'm sure that happens a lot to people. So I guess it's okay to sometimes to let that go and let your kids be your driving force behind that. I think otherwise there could be some really long-term resentment about, like, how could you continue to be friends with somebody whose kid was treating me so meanly? I tried to think about how would I feel if I was the kid, and I guess that's what sort of drove that decision on my part. Right, wrong, I don't know, but that's just the way it happened for me. I think, is it to Jessica or Sue next? Jessica, you're on.
Yeah, I think it's my turn. Yeah, I mean, I don't have children clearly, so I don't have as much. But my little brother actually introduced my parents to their best friends on the planet through soccer, and they were the soccer parents, always hanging out, and and Stephen was best friends with this kid, and I think that they've grown apart. The older they've gotten, they didn't go to the same college, so they didn't spend a lot of time there. But it's still at the point where, like, I basically consider this family like my cousins. They're just an extra set of parents for me. Like to the point where my dad officiated one of the kids' weddings. Like they've just kind of always been close since. I don't know when my little brother met him in middle school. It's probably been at least 10 years. But it's one of those, like, it's not like there was ever a falling out. There was never any fighting as far as I'm aware. And I don't get told everything, so who knows. But, I think that definitely the fact that there wasn't some sort of big blow up, there wasn't a fight, there was never any, like, actual problem. They're still friends to this day. So I feel like it would have been a much different story had the boys had some sort of falling out. But it's just like, I have extra cousins now. That's exciting. That's all I got. I guess I'll pass it to Sue.
So in my experience, it entirely depends on if there's a hurt party. And so that makes it so much harder for me as a mom to be the grown-up in the story. And I own that completely. Like I could get very overinvested in their friendships. And those kids meant so much to me that the betrayal was twofold. It was to my kid and to me on some level. And so it was just really hard to not be mad at the mom. And it took me raising a bunch of kids to be able to step back. And well, first of all, with my oldest kid, I had a need to make friendships. So by the time my younger kids got older, those friendship spots, the dance card was full. And so the friendships were nice, but they didn't have the same like deep need for me of finding my people. And so, it wasn't always my best moment because I did really, we used to have a joke in my house, but I don't think I was joking. I think my husband was joking. We go, well, do we hate them today or do we love them today? And it was like this family decision about that mean person who was hurting our kid. But, it's something that I think if that's the way I reacted, I definitely got better at it. And I got to the point where with my younger kids, when I saw it happening to some other mom, I could go up and say, I really understand why you're angry with me, but maybe we can get over this because it's, this is what happens with friendships. Like, I think, it's kind of why we set out to do Your Teen. We don't really know. And Jody had an inside glimpse as a teacher. We don't really know that it's so normal that friendships fluctuate so much at these ages, especially middle school. And so once you know that that's normal, you can kind of not cling to that relationship as much. But it took me probably 3 kids. And so I apologize to all 3 of them for being overinvested in their friendships. And then, trying to separate my own pain from theirs and just do the good mother thing. So not some of my proudest moments, but It is what it is. And hopefully we're putting out information for everyone who's listening so that they don't have to be Sue in the story and they could be Kamira in the story, because it really was, that was like the grown-up approach to life. So everyone, thank you for being here. We love getting to see you online. Lori said, Jen, great job. Paula agreed 100%, and that came after Jen's comment. So thank you all for being here, and happy Valentine's Day this weekend if you're celebrating, and we'll see you next Monday. And Kamira, thanks so much for being a guest again. We love having you on. Bye, everyone.